to the OklaRoots YouTube channel. In today's tutorial, we're not only doing a scrap-friendly, beginner-friendly, super unique pattern, it's also free. Today, we're doing the Atlantis pouch from Needle and Anchor Patterns. All right, you guys, this pouch just kills me. It kills me. Look at this. What shape is this? I mean, is it? I guess it is sort of a pyramid. Yeah? Yeah, we're gonna go with that. This is so stinking cute. It is perfect for scraps, vinyl scraps, woven scraps, whatever scraps you got. Scraps of zipper tape scraps. How many of you guys use a lot of zipper tape and you got little tiny zipper tape pieces left? This is perfect for that. It comes together quickly. Not only is it free, it comes in 4 different sizes. So I want to show you, I've made 3 of the sizes already, and we're going to make the 4th size today. And I think that the 4th size that we're doing today is like the Goldilocks size. Let me show you why. So this is the medium size. And as you can see, it's made up of like 4 outer panels, a little zipper up top, open it up, and then you just got a nice basic lining. Nothing crazy, no big pockets, no magnetic snaps, no purse feet, nothing like that. It's a very, very simple pattern. But this is the medium size. Now I'm going to show you the small size. It's so cute. I did not put a wristlet strap on this one. I probably should have because it is kind of like, it's kind of hard to hold on to. But this is the small size. I love it. I used all vinyl. I used this fun quilted vinyl, and then I also use this black vinyl that actually changes into something else when it gets hot. Maybe I can show you guys that during the tutorial today. But this is like a color changing vinyl. Little tiny zipper up top. This is the teeniest tiny zipper. Open it up, and there we go. So this is size small. So here we go. Here's medium and small. And I'm gonna show you guys size large. This just cracks me up. I love this one so much. Look at this. So again, wristlet. This is all quilt cotton. I don't know if you can tell, but that is a taco shell. That is some salsa. Here we have some cilantro, some beans. This strap right here looks like shredded cheese. And when you open it up, where's the meat? There's the meat. We got shredded chicken in there. This is like a taco fat quarter bundle I got from the freaking Fabulous Fabric Club. If you haven't heard of it, I'll have a link down below. I think there's a wait list right now to get on it. It's a monthly fabric subscription. It is honestly like the best fabric subscription. You're gonna get such a diverse group of prints, including maybe at some point the taco print. I love this so much. So this is a size large, very big. So here we have large and then medium, and then the small, which I didn't put a wristlet strap on. So these are small. So the 4th size, you think it's like small, medium, large. What is the 4th size? The 4th size is actually smallish medium. It's gonna be between these two. Smallish medium. And all I can think is the reason there is a 4th size is because we just needed one more. We needed that Goldilocks size. So I'm calling it the Goldilocks. That's what we're doing today. In today's tutorial, I'm gonna use a mix of vinyl and quilt cotton because I think you can mix this up. I'm actually gonna be using this quilted vinyl right here. This has become one of my favorite vinyls to use because it is lightweight, but it is vinyl and it's quilted. There's just a lot going on. It looks like you did a lot of work, but you didn't. It looks like it was really hard, but it wasn't. So this is like my secret sauce vinyl right now. So I'll be using that vinyl again today. Thank you as always to Needle and Anchor for allowing me to use your patterns on my channel. I absolutely love them. They are constructed for beginners. I mean, every single bag I've made from Needle and Anchor has been written with a beginner in mind. I mean, maybe some of the techniques aren't the most beginner-friendly techniques, but it was written as if a beginner is reading it. And I always appreciate that. I mean, it doesn't matter how many years I've been sewing, I think like a beginner, which is why I love these patterns. I love these tutorials. So I highly encourage you to go download this pattern, maybe check out some of their other patterns as well. If you see another pattern over on their website you'd like us to do a tutorial over, make sure you leave it down in the comment section down below. So if you're new to the OklaRoots YouTube channel, please consider clicking subscribe down below. If at any point you like this video, please give it a like. Any questions, comments, shoutouts, anything at all, leave them down in the comment section. There will be timestamps as always. They will be listed right along the bottom of the screen. Also, if you click this little arrow over here, it will expand the description. That's where you'll also find the timestamps listed, and you'll find links for everything. I will do my very best to link as much stuff as possible. We have a lot of things, okay? So I will do my best. If you don't see a link for something you're looking for, just leave a comment and I will find that link for you. All right, guys, let's get started. Okay, so how much of what you're gonna need depends on the size you're making. For this, you have 2 pieces of fabric, mainly for the outside. You have a contrast, and then you have an exterior fabric. If you want to make all 4 of the panels different like I did with my taco bag, I highly suggest you do that. Make it scrappy. Seriously, make it scrappy. For the smallish medium size, we are going to be using a 1/4 yard of each. That's more than enough. And then lining, again, 1/4 yard of that. I'll be using waterproof canvas. I always love using waterproof canvas for linings of any bag, mainly because I don't have to interface it with anything. But you can definitely use quilt cotton for the lining as well. This is such a fun scrappy bag. If you're using any sort of a quilt cotton, cotton woven, cotton lycra, anything that can fray or stretch, you do want to add some woven interfacing to it. My go-to is the SoFuse woven interfacing. I'll have a link down below. Since I'm only using a couple small pieces of this quilt cotton here, I don't really need much. I mean, a fat 1/4 of woven interfacing, but you should always have at least a yard on hand, in my personal opinion, because you will use it a lot with bags. So here's the very basic hardware for today. I have some 1/2 inch wide webbing. I'll be using this for the strap and also the little strap connector that attaches to the bag. Webbing is my favorite bag strap material because I don't have to make webbing. You can use quilt cotton, you can use vinyl, you can definitely make your own strap here, but I love using the seatbelt webbing, and now that there's a 1/2 inch size out there, I'm very excited about that. You're gonna need a small zipper. Zipper size just depends on the size of the pouch you're making. For the smallish medium, you need a 5 inch long zipper. This is why I say it's great for scraps of zipper tape, because we always have these little tiny bits of zipper tape that a lot of times we throw away. You don't need to. You can make some of these cute little bags with it. Rivets, I'm going to be using my rivets just for the strap, so rivets are entirely optional. You do not need them at all, but I'll just use 1 rivet when I'm making my little wristlet strap. And then a tag. I gotta be honest, tag placement on this bag, because of the shape of it, is very difficult. I misplaced it, I think, on all 3 bags. So for today, I'm actually gonna use this fold over tag, and I'm going to sew it into the seam in the lining, or maybe I'll sew it into the seam in the exterior. I'm gonna sew it into the seam somewhere, because I think that's just gonna be a little bit easier for me to keep track of. All right, here's all the other stuff. As always, lots of clips. The needles I'm using are Microtex 8012. If you're using all quilt cotton, cotton woven, lighter material, I would suggest you use a 7010 needle, because an 8012 might end up just kind of shoving your material down into the walking feet, right underneath the needle. So the thinner the needle goes with a thinner material. The thicker the needle goes with a thicker material. So since I'm using kind of like a medium weight vinyl, lightweight vinyl, I'm going to be using the 8012s. But I will tell you, when I work with just quilt cotton, which I will for one of the tabs, it will be a little bit of a challenge with that. I always have a lighter on hand just to clean up any little loose threads. My Sew Line air erasing marker for marking things on quilt cotton, my leather, vinyl, silver pen for marking on vinyl. I have a glue stick today. The glue stick is actually going to be really helpful. The more quilt cotton you're using, the more glue stick you're going to want to use. So you can use the glue stick instead of tape when folding some things today. I'll mention that as we go along. I always have a stiletto and then a stiletto seam ripper combo, one at the machine, one at the table. The thread I'm using today is this variegated Tex 35 weight thread. This is great for domestic machines. And then in the bobbin, I'm using just this Gutermann thread from Joann's. And of course, my rivet press, because I'll be using 1 rivet today. Again, rivet completely optional. Alrighty, here are all of our cuts. Now, to be completely honest, I don't know which if you have a directional print, I'm really not sure how it's supposed to go. I think you should probably follow the direction of the pattern pieces, but I quite literally did the opposite of that, so it's gonna be fine. So you're gonna have 2 cuts of your exterior, which for me is the woven material, and this is already interfaced with that SoFuse, so woven interfacing on any sort of quilt cotton, anything like that. And then I have 2 cuts of my contrast, which is my vinyl. No interfacing on this, but you can see this is a pretty lightweight vinyl. This is perfect vinyl for beginners. Perfect. If you've never worked with vinyl, I wish I could just send you this vinyl, because this is your vinyl. If you've never worked with it, this is your vinyl. And then for the lining, I have this wonderful kind of like a lighter weight waterproof canvas. And you have 2 cuts of that. These are just squares. And then a small cut of woven material. I would suggest woven material or waterproof canvas. This is for the zipper tab. If you need to make your own strap, you're also going to have a cut of whatever material you want for your strap, your wristlet strap, and also for the little connector for the D-ring. You know what? I just forgot. I'm not going to be making a wristlet strap today, because instead of a D-ring, I'm going to be using this little keychain right here. This is like a key ring, but it's shaped like a star. So I'm going to be installing this today instead of a D-ring. So I don't need the rivets, but I will still be using one very tiny cut of this webbing to attach this to the bag, but I won't be making a strap today. All right, so the first thing we want to do is prepare our little zipper. So grab your zipper, and on the side that is open when open. So you see once I open my zipper, this side over here separates. This side over here never separates. It always stays closed. No matter if the zipper is open or closed, this end right here is always closed. We're going to measure 5/8 of an inch down from the open end of our zipper tape. All right, once you have that mark, just in the seam allowance, anywhere really, as long as you're using a fabric marking tool, you can split open the end. Now this part is tricky. I would say that this part right here is the trickiest part of the entire pouch. Right where you marked that 5/8 of an inch, you're going to pinch the zipper tape wrong sides together. So you see how the coils are just naturally going up and to the right? We want them to do that. We're going to pinch it, and then we create like this little fold, this little 90-degree fold, and fold the zipper tape back just like that, and then clip together just to hold it in place. Do the same thing on the other side. So I'm just going to pinch it wrong sides together, zipper tape folds towards the left, and then push it back. So we have these nice little 90-degree angles. Now, getting these to stay in place is tricky. There are a couple tricks. You could use glue and just glue this little fold down. You could use double-sided tape that's nice and sticky to hold it in place. We do want to sew it, but it's just, it likes to come undone before we can get it under the needle. Another option, if you want to try, just don't burn yourself, is to use a lighter. So use your clips to try to keep it together. And then with zipper tape, most zipper tape is nylon or polyester. It's made of plastic. You can heat up the raw edges of the zipper tape and just kind of smush it all together. You're pretty much just melting the raw edges of zipper tape together, and that works as a glue. So I don't know if you can see, but now all those layers are kind of melted together, and it holds itself just like that. Now you could just leave it like that and then sew it into place, but I am still going to baste it because I don't trust it. So I'm going to do the same thing on this side. I'm just going to refold this. And the trick is you want all the edges to line up with one another. And then I use a clip towards the zipper teeth side to hold it together. This way I can hold on to that and keep my fingers out of the way while I'm heating it up, and then I smush it. And just do your best not to burn yourself. That's the goal here. Don't burn yourself. All right, there we go. So I've got that together enough. I just need it to stay together so I can baste it. Like I said, glue, tape, whatever you need to do. But we just want to fold these zipper coils back like that. So now let's go to the machine and let's just baste right over this little section right here, holding it all together at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. So once you have the open end sewn on the side, so you see I can close it and it doesn't fly off. See, isn't that nice? On the other side, we're going to add a zipper tab. So first we need to measure our zipper. The pattern's going to tell you, depending on what size you're working on, what this should measure right now. So make sure you trim off the closed end. You trim off this end, not the end you just worked on. Trim off the opposite end so that the zipper tape is the size it needs to be per the pattern. Next up, grab your zipper tab. Now this should just be a piece of lightweight material, no interfacing. And on the back, mark a midpoint line. Once you have that midpoint line marked on one side of it, so for me it's going to be on the bottom side, use a glue stick and just mark a little line. You don't have to use a glue stick. You could just press this with your iron if you want, but I like using glue. And then take the raw edge and fold it wrong sides together up to meet that midpoint line. There you go. And then just press it down. So now we're going to take this to the sewing machine and we're going to take our zipper tab and lay it wrong side up, right side down. So right side against the right side of the zipper teeth. And we're going to just lay it over the edge. It might be wider than your zipper tape. That's okay. Just make sure it covers the entire edge here. So raw edge to raw edge. And we're going to sew along this raw edge at 1/4 inch seam allowance. All right, once you have it sewn on, take your folded over edge of your zipper tab and we're going to flip it to the back. So now all you have to do is just flip the whole piece of fabric back and wrap it around that edge of the zipper, and then just line up the folded edge on the back with the front. So you don't want one hanging down a lot lower than the other. Just get it all lined up really well. Use some clips to help you. There we go. And now top stitch along the inner fold here at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, making sure that you're catching the back as well. That's why it's so important it all lines up. Okay, so just check and make sure it's caught on the front and the back, and then grab some scissors and trim down the sides of the zipper tab so that the zipper is all one length. Isn't that cute? I just love a zipper tab. They're so sweet. Okay, a strap and a strap connector are completely optional. You don't have to do it at all. But if you're going to do it, go ahead and cut down your strap connector. I'm going to cut mine to about 1 1/4 inch. Since I'm not sewing it, I'm not creating it, I can just kind of cut it down to my finished length, which for me is going to be about 1 1/4 inch. There we go. And now I'm going to take this and I'm going to wrap it around my key ring here. You know what? Since my key ring is kind of a funny shape, I think I actually want this to be longer. Yeah, I think I want mine to be a little bit longer. I'm going to cut mine to about 2 inches. So since this is a little bit trickier to work with, I'm going to cut mine to 2 inches because when I sew this into the bag, I don't want to accidentally sew over the metal here. So I need enough room on the end of my strap connector here so that I can sew and not hit this. So I'm going to take this to the sewing machine and I'm just going to sew right along the raw edges here at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance just to hold it all together. And if you're using a webbing, you're going to want to light the edges of it. Webbing has a tendency to fray, and as this gets used, you don't want that fraying to kind of come out from the stitches, you know, like a horror movie. So if you just burn down, melt down the edges of that, you'll prevent it from fraying, and it'll have a nice like plastic seal right here. Okay, set this to the side. Now let's build our exterior pieces. So take a exterior and a contrasting piece and just lay them right sides together, lining them up perfectly. We're worried about the line going right along the center here. Go ahead and grab some clips and clip them together. Do this for both sets. So now let's sew along these midpoint lines at a 3/8 inch seam allowance. Once these are sewn together, you can use an iron to press these open, especially if you're using quilt cotton. An iron will be handy here. But you're going to want to press these pieces away from one another. And then on the back, you're going to want to press the seam allowance open so it goes behind its own piece of material. So if you're using vinyl, you're just going to have to use your fingers here. You can use glue or tape if that's more helpful. If you're using quilt cotton, grab that iron and just iron this down. It's going to make it a lot easier. And then once you have them pressed open, we're going to go back to the machine and we're going to top stitch along both sides of this seam at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. So I found with all of them that once they were pieced together, they were a little bit bigger than the lining panel. So you see I can put the lining panel on, and these pieced together exterior panels are just a scotch bigger than the lining. I'm okay with that because I already want my lining to be a little bit smaller. I mean, I do that with the stitch length. So I'm okay with the lining being a tidbit smaller. It didn't affect construction for me. However, if you want to make it easier, just use the measurement for the lining and trim down your exterior block so that it's the same size as your lining. It'll make the next step a bit easier. But either way, you want to trim down these little dog ears here. Those are just the little folded over corners. Let's make this a nice square. Okay, so now the pattern suggests laying this out so that it's the way you want it in the end. Here's the thing. If this is my top right here, when I install the zipper and it lays down, it's going to lay down like this, zipper going up on the side, and then my print is facing up. It's a difficult little pouch to get oriented right, so I'm going to leave it like this. And it does suggest make sure you mark the top on each side if it matters. This one is the one I'm worried about, so I'm just going to make a little arrow on the back so I know that's the top, and I'll do the same thing over here. You do this however you like. If you don't mind, then just willy-nilly it. So take your first panel, which is for me is this one right here, and from the right side, we're going to measure in 5/8 of an inch on the top edge and make a tiny mark that will stay in the seam. And then on the left side, we're going to do the same, except we're going to do 1/2 of an inch in. So 1/2 of an inch in from the left side, tiny mark that's going to stay right in the seam. Now grab your zipper. I'm going to open it a little bit to make it easier, and lay it right side down so that the zipper tab is on the right and the opening is on the left, and place it. It should match up right in between those marks. So get it lined up with those marks you just made. It should be a perfect fit. It should be. Once you have it in there, just clip it in place. And now let's take this to the sewing machine and baste along this edge of the zipper at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Once you have that basted on, grab one of your lining panels and lay your lining right side down. And you can see when I lined mine up, it's just a hair smaller. It's really not even that noticeable. So if your lining is just a teeny tiny bit smaller than your exterior, just try to center it. So have the same amount of overhang on each side. All right, now we're going to sew along this edge at 1/4 inch seam allowance or a 3/8 inch seam allowance, whichever one you're comfortable with. Okay, now we're going to flip this all back and we're going to flip the seam behind the exterior, but we're not flipping the lining behind the exterior. This is important. We're not moving the lining behind the exterior. We're going to just flip the seam so it's over here on the right. And now we're going to top stitch on the exterior at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. And we're leaving the lining over here on the left, okay? It doesn't get caught in the zipper. I've made a few of these. It's fine like this, but this is going to be helpful for construction later. All right, fold the lining back now. Look how cute that is. So we're going to repeat that on the other side. So grab your other exterior. Make sure if you marked on the back which side is up, we have it up. And we're going to do the same markings except opposite edges. So this time on the left side, we're going to mark 5/8 of an inch in and just right along the top edge of the exterior. And then over here on the right side, we're going to measure in 1/2 of an inch. So it's just flipped. And now take your unit with the zipper, lay it so that the zipper is right side down, and line it up right between those two marks. And when you do this, you should notice that the sides of the other exterior panel match up with the sides of the panel you're working on. So now let's baste along that clipped edge at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. And then grab your remaining lining panel and lay that right side down against the back of your zipper tape. And again, if it's a little bit smaller than the exterior, just center it and clip it together. And now let's sew along that clipped edge at a 3/8 inch or 1/4 inch seam allowance. Whichever seam allowance you did on the other side, you need to do that on this side as well. Okay, once you have that sewn on, let's move everything out of the way. I know it can get a little confusing when you sew the second piece on. But what you want to do now, flip the lining from the second piece to the left. Take that top piece that has the lining already attached, take all that to the left as well. And what we want is we want to take the seam and push this seam that we just sewed behind the exterior panel that we're working on. So we're already done with this side over here, right? But the opposite exterior and lining, and also the lining for the panel we're working on, should all be towards the left. And only the exterior panel that we just added is on the right, and the seam is on the right behind the exterior panel. And now let's top stitch along this edge at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. So now make sure you just kind of finger press the linings behind their associated exteriors. Lay your panels out so that the zipper is facing up. If you have some sort of a strap hook, we're going to go ahead and apply that now. We're going to go about 1/2 of an inch, 3/4 of an inch. I think I'm going to go about 3/4 of an inch or even an inch down from this top edge on the right side panel and clip this in place. And I'm only clipping it to the exterior. So go ahead and take that lining, move it out of the way. And I'm going to baste this down at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. You have to be very careful with all of this as you construct it to pay attention to where this hardware is, or else you're going to hit it with your needle, and that's not going to be good. Okay, so now open your zipper halfway. Especially if you have a bigger zipper pull, you might want to just keep it in the middle. Take your two exterior panels and fold them up right sides together. Take your lining panels, fold them right sides together. I like to line up the seams first, so I have my seam between the lining and the exterior. I line up that first, clip it together. Same thing on the other side. Since the seams are only top stitched to the exterior, they're going to go that way. You don't have to figure out which way to fold the seams. And now let's clip the long edges together. All right, so now I'm going to kind of diverge from the pattern just a little bit for the lining fold over, for what's easiest for me. I'm actually just going to take both sides of my lining and I'm going to fold them both back. Let's see, how much is this? About 3/8 of an inch. You can measure it or you can just kind of eyeball it. But I'm folding it all back 3/8 of an inch. I'm not folding them separately. I'm just folding them together in one direction. There we go. And that's how I'm going to hold that in place until the end. So now we're gonna go to the sewing machine, and on the exterior side, we're gonna sew at a 3/8 inch seam allowance. On the lining side, we're gonna sew at a 1/2 inch seam allowance. And we're not sewing these short edges right here, only the long edges. So I'm gonna start at the exterior, 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Make sure you back stitch when you start. Go all the way down until you get to the zipper. Once you get past the zipper, go ahead and increase it to a 1/2 inch seam allowance, and make sure you back stitch really well over this folded over bit. Keep it folded. Back stitch over it really well. Do the same for both sides. I like to use a zipper foot. A zipper foot lets me get nice and close to the edge of the zipper and the zipper tab and my hardware for my D-ring, or for me, my star key ring, without getting losing control. A regular presser foot might kind of push away from all this and you lose a bit of control. So I do recommend a zipper foot for this part. Okay, now take your exterior open and bottom, and actually what you want to do now is open your zipper as much as you can, because we're done sewing over here. So take the exterior open bottom and you're gonna pull it so that the seams come together. It's kind of like we're boxing a corner, because pretty much that's what we're doing. We're gonna pull this so the seams come together. Now you can choose to have the seams spread open depending on your material. I'm actually gonna have my seams go in opposite directions, because that's just a little bit easier for me. And then I'm gonna clip them together. So I line up the seams first, and I have them going in opposite directions so they kind of hug in with one another, and then clip. Your material might be easier if you spread the seams open with your fingers and then clip together. So I'm gonna take this to the sewing machine and sew along this bottom edge here at a 3/8 inch seam allowance. All right, now if you wanna trim down this seam just a little bit to reduce the bulk, go ahead and do that. So now what I'm gonna do is take the whole pouch and turn it out through that opening in the lining. And just make sure you reach in and poke out those corners really well. If you have a stiffer vinyl, you might want to use a turning tool. And then from the inside of the bag, you can get your finger underneath the edge of the zipper where the zipper tab is and just kind of pop up that zipper tab. There we go. And I like to just push in the lining so I can see it. Make sure it all looks right. Oh yeah, isn't that cute? I love this little thing. It's so adorable. All right, so let's close up the lining. So now pull your lining back out through the hole, and when you close the lining, don't forget, we want to close it with the seams coming together. We don't want to close it like this. We want to close it like this, so that we have that nice triangle shape on the inside of the pouch too. So make sure that the edges are folded in, the raw edges are folding towards the inside, the wrong side of the lining. Bring those seams together, match them up, and clip together. And then clip along the folded edge of your lining. And then, if you're using a fold over tag like I am, go ahead and grab that and insert that so that it's sticking out on the right side of the lining, but the edge of it will be caught in the stitching. So just clip that in place. And now let's stitch along this lining edge at an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. All right, once you have that stitched in place, just make sure you check both sides that all of the edges got caught. If you have any scraggly threads, you can very carefully melt down those little ends. All right, now just tuck that into your bag and then close it up. And look how cute that is. I love this little star keychain too. Such a cute little bag. Alrighty guys, are you ready? It's so stinking cute. And I love that we use the little keychain. So it's one of those projects where it's use what you got. You got vinyl, you got quill cotton, you got keychains. Use what you have. Okay, so now my collection is complete. Let's see, we have the large, and then the medium, and then Goldilocks over here is the smallish medium, and then we have the small. We have all of it. The collection is completed. Oh, I love it. I love these so much. These would be so fun. I don't know, they'd be fun just as any sort of pouch, a little unique wristlet. You could actually probably make these pretty chic looking with the right material, you know what I mean? But I think these would be really fun too if you made a whole bunch of them, maybe for a class, end of year gifts, and you stuffed them with candy or gift cards, things like that. You could fill them up with little goodies, give them out. It's such a unique way to gift something, and they're just so stinking cute. So thank you so much for sewing with me today. I hope you love making these as much as I do. They really are such a treasure. Such a treasure. If you do make them, let me know. I want to know what they look like. I want to know what material you use. You can tag me on social media. I'm at OklaRoots. You can also send me an email. I'm Jessica@OklaRoots.com. I hope you're having a great day. Have a fantastic rest of your week. Get out there and make something. Bye, guys.